Hello everyone. This is Abigail Varela, and I am on here to talk a little bit about, sorry, I had to grab my tea, a little bit about the divine feminine and the astrology and all that good stuff. So if you're hopping on here, please type it in the chat so I know that it's working. And I was going to do it from my computer, so I appreciate you guys' patience because it wasn't working. I don't know what's going on, but I am here now. Hi, Holly. How are you? Good. I'm glad it's working. Phew. Okay. It wasn't working on my computer, so here I am. I'm going to have to hold my phone, which is fine. I'm so excited to be here today and just part of this conversation about sensuality, divine feminine, the astrology, all that good stuff. And I wanted to have, okay, that is working. Okay. I wanted to have a few things to talk about today. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to touch on was touching ourselves. Just kidding. That is something I want to talk about. I'm outside right now because that's the one place I know that it's safe for me to be without my kids bothering me, because they don't come outside unless I force them now. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you can always have some alone time. The sun is kind of coming in and out here. And before this, I was just laying in the sun out here and just having a moment to myself. And my kids actually did come out, and one of them asked to lay next to me, and I was like, sure. But beyond that, it can be really difficult to get them outside. And so one of the best things to do is to just get yourself outside and get a little break time. And so, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the astrology too, and kind of what kinds of things are coming up. Can you guys, I'm guessing you can hear me okay? I have my headset in, but if you can't hear me, I can always take it out, but it's working. Okay, cool. I'm happy to take any astrological questions as well. So one of the things I was talking about that originally kind of sparked this conversation was I was talking about Black Moon Lilith and if she was in the sky. And Moon Lilith, like the moon in general, is feminine. And then Black Moon Lilith is the darkest dark of the dark feminine, all the things that our culture is not comfortable with. So everything that we consider taboo, everything that we consider to be wrong, in that sense of right, wrong, and there's a lot of shame and guilt associated with it. Okay, great. Oh, there's a bee. And right now is a time period that a lot of people are experiencing a lot of guilt and grief and sadness, and Black Moon Lilith sparks a lot of judgment. And she doesn't spark it, but she sparks that in us where that can easily be triggered. Hi Megan. Hi Holly. Hi Adrian. So I wanted to talk a little bit about her and what she's doing right now. And I also want to just in general say that with the North Node still in Cancer, we're actually really being led to self-nurturing at this time. And so it's actually a beautiful time to be home with the North Node in Cancer. And something that is important is to understand that right now we have a compass, and that compass changes signs every 18 months or so. And right now it's in the last little bit of its journey through Cancer. And what it's been teaching us these last 18 months is about the Divine Mother, mothering ourselves, nurturing ourselves, taking good care of our vessels, and staying home more, and maybe not doing as much travel. So it's really interesting that in this last little bit of the sign, she's really forcing us home. And one of the beautiful things about fear beyond the, reality of grief, is allowing ourselves to feel and allowing ourselves to process. So Cancer is the sign that rules the moon. And the moon is our emotional security. It's our emotional needs in our own chart. And whenever we're going through our cycle, then the cycle that we're in right now is super intense. We're going to have a full moon in Libra, where the moon is in its closest closest orbit to the Earth. And so her pull on us is even stronger. And we are in a masculine cycle. A lot of energies being infused. Black Moon Lilith was very present at the new moon, and the full moon will be in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, which is our femininity, and it is a masculine sign of logic, of justice being served. And so it's really interesting to have this full moon, where the seed of this full moon was with Black Moon Lilith. So I want to come back around to her. Black Moon Lilith is, I call her the ride or die in astrology, the ride or die bitch. And I often talk about how that fear when you say something, that fear of being called a bitch. And one of my classes that's still up, I kept it up for Women's Day because I think it's so applicable. I talk about the witch, bitch, the witch, bitch, and Mars are the three, and these archetypes that we can go into. We're afraid of being one of these things. We often feel more comfortable as a woman being in the martyr role, because that's typically what our ancestors, our feminine ancestors, fell into. It's not very common. If you go back far enough, definitely there's the witch and definitely there's a bitch, but she has been wiped from our collective. She's in the shadow, but she's not at the forefront of this reality that we're in. So we felt like we had to stuff her down. Because of that, that's where we see a lot of that collective shadow energy around sexuality, around sensuality, and around pleasure for women. So Black Moon in your own chart can tell you a lot. So people who have her very active in their chart, or are going to be more sex symbols, or seen as a bitch, or seen as in our culture. I'm trying to think of examples. I should have a few examples but I don't. But you want to know where she is in your own chart to understand how this comes across for yourself, and where maybe you have healing to do around your sensuality and sexuality. So was very active at the new moon, which is the seed. And when we have her active a new moon, she's telling us that our intention should be around self-acceptance. Our intention should be around healing that part of ourselves, so that at the full moon we don't see a lot of her shadow. And what her shadow is so let me tell the story of Black Moon Lilith. So Black Moon Lilith, the original story, if you guys, in Judaism, it's very much a part of the story that that she was the first wife of Adam. And so she was the first wife of Adam, and she would not be submissive to Adam. She wanted to be Adam's equal partner. And one of the stories is that by nature of submission, she wanted to be on top. And Adam was like, no, the whole society was like, no, that's not how this goes, And she wanted to experience pleasure in her sexuality. And so she was seen as a threat. And so she was shunned from community. I don't know, the reality of the story is she was probably killed. But in the patriarchal story is that she became this demon. And so Adam took a newer, younger wife. Think about this, guys. This is so like the patriarchy. Took a younger maiden type bride. Yes, I wish people knew more about her too. And so the story was that Lilith turned into this demon that would come and steal your children, eat, this horrible, horrible story that if you were too much in your power as a woman, it would be the end of humanity. It would just be, that's it. We wouldn't be able to have society anymore, right? So it's a really a story of the ages about the disempowerment of the feminine and the disempowerment of women being in their pleasure. Think about how to align back with our pleasure. We look to Lilith in the birth chart to understand how this individual might find ways to get back into their sensuality and sexuality. So that's Black Moon Lilith. And because she's such a part of this lunar cycle, this is also interesting because this is something that our society is really learning. We're a younger society, and our society is really learning about coming to grips with life cycles. This is something that we've tried, and the patriarchy really instills in us, is that youth is the only way, that there's something wrong if you get a sickness or if you develop any kind of issue with your body or whatever. Like, it must be fixed. It must be maintained back to this this really, idealistic young model. And this is whole like Viagra, like, let's not look at the real problem here. Let's just get a pill or something to get you back to that idea of normal. And getting more in touch with Black Moon Lilith, getting more in touch with our like dark feminine, it's really the dark feminine, is to say there are things happening that we aren't supposed to know about, and that when we individually, I'm not talking about society but right now, but like individually, when we are confronted with an illness, with some kind of symptom in our body, it's talking to us on an energetic level. And Black Moon Lilith is all about really kind of getting comfortable with deep transformations and getting comfortable with this idea that when we have an experience where we can go deeper into something and really slow everything down, such as with an illness or with any kind of thing that comes up that is introduced to us, right? Like, all of a sudden I'm having a pain, all of a sudden I'm having this experience. When we try to just keep doing business as usual, that's when we really see problems happening. So that dark feminine is about really sitting with it, and really sitting. And this is also what the Cancer North Node and how these two align, because Cancer and the full light of the moon is about our emotional security and our emotional needs, and then dark Moon Lilith is about really going deep into those transformations to experience the whole experience of being human and being a feminine body. Yeah, so getting in touch with her. So there was one more thing I was going to say, and then I'll get to that. Okay, this is also connected to this idea that to be feminine and a feminine body, or you could be a feminine and masculine body, is all about the cycles of life, right? And so the shame and this seed of there's something wrong with that by the patriarchy and by the non-masculine, like the divine masculine totally honors that, like that life is messy and life is blood and life is these like even our monthly cycle has more than blood. It has that time period where we're very fertile, and then we have that egg-like discharge. Like, it's messy. It's life. And for men, they don't experience those cycles and that messiness as much. They watch us dealing with it. And the higher version of the masculine honors that and respects that. And the lower level of the masculine wants to shame that and wants to separate from that. I remember the most disturbing thing I ever heard was a friend of mine, a guy friend, say, "My dad told me never to trust something that bleeds for 7 days every month." And I was like, oh my God, like that was like the most real thing I'd ever heard. I think I was like 21, and I was like, whoa, that's so intense. And I think part of that is such a real experience of the masculine, is having to overcome their urge and their desire to want to keep everything clean. There's nothing wrong with sterile, but clean and sterile and non-messy. And real life and real grounding in through the divine feminine is messy, and it is having to confront deep transformations that are not clean and sterile. I think we're going to see more intensity before we see more calm. And one of the things about that is, as the feminine, we are the amplifiers. We're the receivers and the amplifiers. And so it's really important that we not be amplifying more fear at this time. It's really important that we transmute all of the things that we're receiving around fear from our partners, from our family, from the people around us, and really kind of tapping in and touching in with Mama Earth more, so that we can be these beacons of trust and calm and centeredness and pleasure, because ultimately, what's the point of being alive if we're all just living in fear? There's not really a point. Taking a group of 13 women through a 14-week journey from the new moon in Taurus to the new moon in Cancer. You know, we're talking about this Cancerian cycle that we're in, and the Cancer new moon is in July. So this takes us on a 14-week journey. And I did something really special, was that I kept it at the lower rate. So like I had a 1 day. If you register that 1 day, then you get it for that lower rate. And what I decided to do, because it happened when all this stuff was happening, was to just keep it at that low rate for people who are, you know, having a harder time with finances, or just really need a good reason to jump into some self-healing work. And what it is an exploration of the 13 feminine archetypes and the astrology, and how each archetype is in your chart, and how it speaks to you, and how it wants to be heard, and how it can be healed for more of the feminine empowerment. I really feel like that's what this big shift is about starting to once again honor divine feminine and the matriarch within us all.